Hey there, Dr. Nancy Zare, and I am the LinkedIn Whisperer, and I want to welcome you to this program on converting prospects into clients using LinkedIn. And as we're getting settled, and I know some of you have need to use the restroom and get some refreshments, that's okay, but with me, this first few minutes, I'm going to share a little bit about myself and welcome you. And I'm actually going to do a little presentation. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Whoops. Psychology of sales. That's what we're really talking about. However, that is not what I wanted to share. So I'm going to stop that. Maybe I'm going to figure that out. As you can tell, I am still getting new to this. So let's see. I think this is what I do. I remove from studio. There we go. And now I want to do want to present, and I want to share my screen. And I'm going to look for the right one, which is, oh, interesting. Somehow my PowerPoint is not listed as one of the choices. Okay, all is good. So we will not have that presentation. However, let's see, select a tab. I see, share my screen. Okay, so we will cancel. So instead, I'm going to speak to you just from my heart, which is obviously the way you'd want it, right? So first of all, I want to thank you for taking time to watch this. And if you're watching the replay, go ahead and put in #replay. And again, I appreciate you taking time because time is our most precious commodity. We only have so much of it. It can't be replenished. And to invest it in this educational piece, I appreciate you. And so how many of you want to increase sales? Is that you? Go ahead and put the word increase sales in the chat box, or let me know if you're watching whether that is you. And is there anyone here who would like to become a better communicator? And again, if that is true for you, go ahead and put in BC for better communicator, especially when it comes to selling. The skill that I'm going to teach you actually applies not only to selling, it applies to communicating in relationships of all sorts. And so if you're looking to increase sales without being pushy, aggressive, or salesy, I have a suggestion. I've come up with a system called a like ability. That's like with an A in front of it, a like ability. And when people feel that we're alike, it changes everything. I have studied the best salespeople, and they happen to outsell the average 57-1. That's a huge difference, wouldn't you agree? Now, I may not aspire, and you may not aspire to become that super special 57-1 salesperson, but guess what? You want to increase your sales to some extent, and you want to do so in a way that is in alignment with your values. For me, that's so important that we be respectful, and that what we do respects people and values them as human beings who can make up their own minds and make their own decisions. So very important that we be respectful. The best salespeople outsell the average 57-1, but if you ask them how they do it, they don't have an answer. And that's because they're on autopilot. You see, they have developed a system which allows them to be exceptional in communicating during a sales process without necessarily thinking about it. They're on automatic. If you were to watch them, they don't seem to do something very different. In other words, there's not something that stands out and makes you say, wow, that was a technique. That was an unusual thing. No, they're simply being what I call chameleons. They are adapting themselves to their prospects. And that means that they may change their vocal qualities, and they may speed up and put in a lot more energy and get more excited when they're working with a prospect who is full of excitement. or they may slow down and change their pace and be more quiet for another kind of prospect. What makes me different than most people who are going to focus on selling is that I want to focus on the buyer and not necessarily you, the seller. And by focusing on the buyer and how the buyer makes decisions, how the buyer thinks, how the buyer behaves, how they operate, by shifting what you say and how you say it to align with the buyer, the individual says to themselves, wow, you get me. We're alike. Hence, that's why I named the system Alike Ability. Remember, that's like with an A in front of it, alike ability. And since I made up the word, I get to define it. It's a skill that raises the feeling, the thought, a perception within the other person that we're alike, that we're functioning on that same wavelength. This is so important. And think to yourself, and if you would, take a moment, and even if you're watching as a replay, go ahead and comment, why do you think it's important that people feel we're alike? If Michael Liebowitz were here, and Michael and I did a presentation a week ago at this time, Michael would tell you that there are two parts of the brain and the first part is on guard. It's literally the gatekeeper that is determining whether or not we're going to go any further. And that gatekeeper is pushing away people that are not alike. And it's subtle because, after all, we intellectually say to themselves, no harm, this person is fine. But our critter brain, our reptilian brain, realizes that there's something off here. And hence, unless we feel comfortable with the person, we don't proceed. Once the comfort level is there and the gates have dropped, guess what happens? Now the relationship can build. The trust will increase. That sales resistance, the being on guard, has dropped away, and that opens the door to doing business together. And that will result in you're getting more clients without being pushy, aggressive, or salesy. So what is it that I bring to the table that's different? Well, again, I'm looking at the prospect. How do buyers buy? How do they make their decisions? And it turns out that there are 4 distinct personality styles. And there are over 200 personality systems. You may be familiar with things like DISC or Performax. There are words, there are colors, objects, all sorts of animals I'm thinking about. There are many 200 systems out there. The one that I have created uses numbers rather than words or colors to describe these 4 styles. These numbers are based upon 35 years of research. Yes, 35 years of research in the telemarketing field. And they were done by my colleague, Mary Peckus. Mary and I wrote the book, No Pressure Selling, 15 Proven Formulas for Increasing Sales. And during her time of running a successful telemarketing agency for some of the Fortune 500 companies, she was able to research these 4 styles and how long it takes them to make up their mind, how many contacts were needed before that person could make a decision. Now, at the time, she called them 1, 3, 5, and 7. I have since adjusted that upward because in the digital era, she was basically using in-person meetings and phone calls as her measuring tools. But in the digital era, as you know, there's a lot of noise out there and a lot of messages are going unnoticed. So I've pushed it up to 2, 4, 6, and 8. Those are the 4 styles. The number 2 buyer, they're fast, decisive. They usually need 1, at most 2 contacts. They're ready to go. They're what we call low-hanging fruit. And I know that marketing people love them because most of the marketing messages are geared towards the person who's ready to decide today. In fact, many of the ploys and language we use to talk to that person are about making them go forward today. There's urgency, there's a deadline, you got to do it now, you're going to miss out. All of that is language that appeals to the number 2 buyer. The number 4 buyer is actually fairly quick. They take about 3 contacts, but they need 1 additional touch point. Now, contacts, I'm talking about, again, yes, an in-person meeting, phone calls, which, emails, digital texting of all sorts, any kind of thing that you might send, for example, a card or a letter that gets sent through the mail and so forth. These are all touch points. Well, this person, the number 4 buyer, they make up their mind in only, as I said, about 2 or 3 contacts, but they need 1 more, which makes them number 4. They need an extra contact after the sale is made because this person gets cold feet. They have buyer's remorse. They begin to think about, was I too trusting? Was I too gullible? Was I too naive? Did this person really tell the truth? Are they down to earth? Are they authentic? And all that, thinking and cogitating in their minds makes them hesitate to go forward. Hence, within 24 hours, when you recontact them and let them know, I'm so glad we're working together, that's a genuine message they need in order to feel like I made the right decision. And then we have our number 6 buyer. They need 5, 6, 7, on average 6 contacts before they make up their minds. I think of them as average buyers because 70% of sales happen after 6 touch points. So this person is average in terms of making up their minds. Why are they taking so long? Well, they're looking you up on social media. They're going to directories like the Better Business Bureau, Yelp, and so forth, maybe Google. They want to see what other people have said about you. All of this is what's going on. And then they make up their minds because it feels safe. It's their social proof. And so they're not doing something out of the ordinary. They're following in a conventional way. And finally, we have the number 8 buyer. This person takes at least 8 contacts. Now, if you take 8 and you turn it on its side, it becomes the symbol for infinity. So this person starts with 8 and they can get much more than 8. They have to think about it. They need to research. And yes, they go online, not to read testimonials and get references, but to understand scientifically. They want an explanation. They want to feel like they have understanding and knowledge about what it is you're offering and why it works. Hence, they're going to ask a lot of questions and they're going to want a lot of information over time. Now, if you've listened carefully to this outline of 2, 4, 6, and 8, you realize these are very different buyers. Yes, they take a different amount of time to make up their minds, but they also need different inputs. They need a different quality from you in order to be able to decide. So by identifying your buyer quickly, and I can help you do it within less than a minute, then you will be prepared for how to go forward with this person, including how you're going to follow up, because the fortune is in the follow-up, right? You are following up. All right, so enough said about this. I am now going to apply this to finding out how people can be identified using Facebook and LinkedIn and other social media profiles, but I'm specifically going to go to LinkedIn. So I noticed that we don't have any volunteers joining us live because I would ask you to volunteer to have your profile read. So I do have a couple of profiles that I have come handy, that people who've given me permission to do this. And so again, I'm going to share my screen, and it's interesting, just learning how to share screen on LinkedIn is a little skill that I sometimes don't know. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to go to a LinkedIn. Okay, first person up to the bat is Sandra Kearney. Now, Sandra and we've actually met maybe a couple of times when I used to live in the greater Boston area. But we're work colleagues. We see each other all the time in LinkedIn. And I read her posts. She reads mine. We comment very frequently. So how do I start by reading people's profiles? And how can you learn to read someone's profile? Well, you start with their picture. And in this case, we have the first question I always ask my clients is she smiling or not? And clearly, Sandra is smiling. But there are two kinds of smiles. There's a smile that comes from the inside and just kind of bubbles up and goes through the eyes. And you just feel like the person wants to give you a hug, like they're looking at you and they're like, oh, I'm so glad to meet you. And then there is a smile that is for purposes of the camera. And that smile has a little bit of tension, usually around the lips. Often you'll see that the eyes are not crinkled when someone is posing for the camera. And in this case, I'd have to suggest that Sandra's smile is coming more from that place of, I'm smiling for the camera. And yet, as you look at her eyes, she's looking directly at us. There is a warmth going on there. And so this is giving me a suggestion that she is that number 6 buying style and number 4 buying style combination. And by the way, it is 60% of people are a combination of 2 dominant styles. We are actually a combination of all 4 styles, but 2 styles are very strong in 60% of the population. And we use one style socially and the other style in business. And so here we see Sandra, who has a combination of both styles going on. And then one of the other things I do is I look at what people write about themselves, the words they use. So she's working with companies to continue growing in employee engagement initiatives. So employee engagement suggests to me, again, that she wants people to engage, which is a number 4 style. That's language number 4's use. Initiatives to help people feel connected and cared about. These are definitely number 4 terms. Regardless of being in person or remote. And Sandra excels at helping companies be able to adjust themselves for employees who are both in person and working remotely. So as you can see, I'm scrolling down rapidly to the recommendations and I'm looking at what she's given. Now, why did I go to that section? You see, a lot of people are turning now to folks who can help them write a LinkedIn profile. Hence, it's not really their words. But when we give a recommendation for another colleague, that's our language. That's our words. And that's going to reveal our style. And so I'm looking at what Sandra has written. And as you can see, she's talking about someone who's responsible for communicating in the community. The person has passion. Now, passion would be a number 2 word, but number 4 style also has a bit of that passion, that energy for helping people. She provides a great benefit as well as reducing costs for suppliers. So notice that she's commenting on reducing cost for supplies because this is a key piece of the number 6 buying style. They're on budget. They are planners. They have a structure. They have a process and a method. And she's telling us right now that this is so important. And as she continues in her recommendations, she's talking about the fact that the tracking tax exemptions. Again, this would be a number 6 activity, etc. So this is what I use. I'm going to stop the sharing. This is what I use to help identify people's buying style. Quick little demonstration. It doesn't take long to look at someone's profile, to look at their smile, to look at how they're dressed, to look at the words that they're using. And all of these are huge clues as to what their style is. If you found this of interest or value, may I make a suggestion? And that is to take a look at our group coaching program. We have a new cohort that is starting on June 29th. That's just in a couple weeks. This is an opportunity for you in a very comfortable way with a small number of your peers to be able to learn about these 4 buying styles and also go to LinkedIn, just like we did with your prospects. Not only will I identify and help you learn how to identify their style, but will also give you specific instructions and advice as to what to say and do to build the relationship and to go on to convert that person into a paying customer. If that sounds like it's right up your alley, I invite you to join us. The link to use to learn more information is bit.ly/capital Z for Zare, Z-A-R-E, and a capital G for group, Zare Group. So bit.ly/Zare G. And I'll go ahead and I'll put that in the comments later. To your sales success, it's Nancy Zare, certified sales trainer, author, and LinkedIn whisperer.